series dedicated to leaders who are shaping the future of work. Each week, we engage with CEOs and senior leaders and delve into transformative dynamics of today's workforce, where we get to know their company insights, their leadership style, their culture, and of course, their wisdom as well. The goal is to generate authentic and real world content that can resonate with professionals across different industries, offering them both an inspiration as well as practical insights for both personal and professional development. On that note, I'm thrilled to be joined by Mr. Praanesh Bhuvaneshwar, who is the founder and CEO of Qoruz. Praanesh, it's a pleasure to have you with us. How are you doing?
Hey Karan, great to meet you. It's a great pleasure meeting you as well.
And thank you for taking your time on Saturday, which is quite unusual, but I really appreciate that as well. Thank you, Praanesh. But let's jump right in, Praanesh. Qoruz, I'm very, very curious about your business and its evolution, right? And when I got to know about you and your business, I was really blown away, right? You being one of the leading marketing and influencing intelligence platform, the way you connect business and influencers, right? Just could you please talk us through it for our viewers about your business and how it started and what you do and how you do?
Cool, great. So Kiran, I've been in digital marketing ever since the beginning of my career. Right, I graduated as an engineer, but for some reason I actually picked marketing. And I started around the time when Facebook was entering India, and then subsequently Twitter came into play. Subsequently, YouTube also came into play around 2014 and all that, right? One is like when a engineer becomes a marketer, by default he's number focused. Second is he keeps looking for patterns, right? The pattern I was looking for is okay, organic content is going to blow up, number one. And branded content generally didn't have as much trust factor as much as the independent voices. The term influencers came in much later. Independent voices. When a person is speaking about a brand or a particular topic, the trust value was very high. Right. And then I saw that, early on in 2013, 2014 itself, brands were actually working with these guys who had, at that point of time, even 2,000, 3,000 Twitter followers, trying to organize some sort of meetups and all that. And I actually saw a couple of brands even consecutively spending money in terms of hosting these events rather than traditionally spending more money on creating a video or an ad shoot kind of a format, right? And then, coincidentally, I was part of one of the largest political campaigns which happened. I was consulting actually one of the largest political campaigns and what happened. And then, around 6 or 7 different vertical heads were there running different verticals, from say a WhatsApp campaign to a YouTube campaign to a PR campaign and all that, and I was responsible for the influencer piece, right? And the campaign was a very sharp 63-day period, if I remember right. And then we used to work almost 18 hours a day, right? Yeah, again, and we were given each of us were given budgets based on what are the goals which we are supposed to accomplish. And then once the whole thing was over, we pulled it off. We did a lot of manual work, automated work, whatever and all that. We pulled it off. And when the 8 heads were meeting to understand what was the ROI of each of the vertical which they were doing, the highest one was actually influencer marketing. Right? I was like, okay, there's something going on here, right? And here's the fun part. When I was executing those 63 days, extremely intense days or something like that, a lot of loopholes was there. I'm like, why is this thing, if this is going to be this powerful as a medium for even something which is crucial like politics or something like that, right? What if brands are supposed to leverage it and brands may not have so many human people working for it, right? So it has to be automated, there has to be more technology. How do we solve it? That was the ideation of Korus, to be very frank. That was a proof of concept for a technology play for brands to leverage and work tighter with these influencers. Later on, we built multiple layers. Now we are a full-fledged enterprise solution, and we specifically work with enterprises while we also serve SMEs. Enterprise solution which helps brand managers and influence marketing managers, PR managers, and all that understand what is the right thing to do about influencers and work with influencers in a more mutually symbiotic kind of a way. That's what we are. To put it simple, a tech bridge between brands and creators.
Oh, that's pretty impressive. In a way that what I liked about you come from an engineering background, right? And the kind of business or profession is completely different. And it's a great for people to even get aspired, right? What you studied, but what you bought is the design patterns that what I liked about it, right? You thought about what is missing puzzle, and you looked at there was a opportunity where you can bridge the gap, and your company got evolved. But is it fair to say, Pranesh, the way, especially post-pandemic, your business got kind of scaled? If the data points are right, it's almost from 50 employees now you're 100 plus employees. Is that right?
True. I mean, there are two major reasons. One is obviously, the consumption of online content spiked up during COVID. I mean, during COVID, and the trend was there to stay, right? So it there was a dent in the purchasing behavior in terms of content consumption and then buying, and hence influencer marketing started booming, right? And a little bit I think all of us had time to rethink what we did right, what we did wrong, and then make plans. So both of it help actually.
It's pretty impressive in a way. So, in terms of what's the industry like? What's the future in this industry? Or perhaps let me put it this way: what kind of aspirations do you have for Korus in the coming 5 years?
I'll tell this in a different way. I'll tell this with the same question which you actually initially started the conversation with, right? I mean, this industry, right? This industry is a new breed of professionals who are, I mean, I don't see this like anything else except for new breed of professionals who are coming forward, right? Basically, creative professionals. When I say creative professionals, by default, you think a UX designer or maybe a videographer
Hmm.
and all that, right? Who have worked in corporates. When I say creative professionals, I'm talking about independent creative professionals who are not dependent on corporates, who are able to make money and all that. That's a new economy. And that's why these people use the word creator economy and all that. But the depth of
Hmm.
it is you think of this, I had spoken with a lot of creators who told that, if it were not for making content, I would be probably as a BPO, working in a BPO somewhere, or a data analyst somewhere, or maybe even a data entry person some point of time, or maybe even doing delivery gigs and all that, right? So content, and I've genuinely heard from people, right? So these guys are adding to the GDP and then doing good for themselves, and then creating this new independent artist slash professional kind as a whole economy itself, right? So that's how I see this industry. Okay, and you can take multiple versions of the same story. I mean, will there be a LinkedIn kind of a thing for these guys? Yes, of course there will be a LinkedIn kind of a thing for these guys. Will there be a marketplace for these guys? Like how Fiverr has professionals, will there be a marketplace for these guys? There will be a marketplace for these guys, and tools, support ecosystem, or maybe even some sort of community to support them for mental wellness and breakdown and all that, right? All
Hmm.
of that for these independent content creation professionals is going to come up, right? So that leads on to the final point on what am I doing about this, right? This is dynamic. It's fast growing. It's extremely dynamic. To be very frank, while I will put, if you were a VC, or if you were an investor, I would have been telling a 5 year story, right? But the reality is I'm operating dynamic, right? I mean, every year I see the trends and then decide this is what I'm going to do. And if my original thesis is broken down in middle by a new input or a new observation or something like that, we break our initial thesis and then we create a new thesis every 6 months. That's how we are working. What is Chorus going to be? Chorus is going to be a tech player who's still going to solve the same problem for creators and same problem for brands, but in what format that can keep changing.
So it's quite interesting as well, right? We are living in a dynamic world. In fact, everything is changing, right? And having that business model that is very flexible, where you kind of adapt to whatever the market conditions are, that's quite impressive. At the end of the day, you're still solving the same problem. You still have the same platform, but it might reshape in some sort of thing. Is it fair to say, because my knowledge within this industry is quite limited, so what kind of is it? I know content creation has been a big thing, right? I mean, usually what kind of influencers, the is it usually Gen Z, are the people who are coming into it, or what kind of demographics, or could you please enlighten us with that kind of
So,
yeah.
it did start with Gen Z, to be very frank,
Okay.
Kiran. I'm but I think it's going mainstream now. When I see
Okay.
mainstream, people whoever has a full-time job is also going to do some form of content creation for, even for personal identity, kind of maintaining the personal identity. If not about making money, I still have to maintain my personal identity, right? Otherwise I'm lost among a million people, and I
Mm.
don't want to be lost, right? So it adds to the discoverability of my core earning potential, which is my full-time job, right? Not the typical Instagrammer who you think of. So this guy is also going to become a content creator, a serious content creator. Either it's going to help him in terms of excelling in his own business, small business, or probably get discovered by, like, other HRs in a larger company, and then, like, get a this thing or something like that. That is how this industry is shaping up. It's not like limited to only Gen Z or limited to only
Okay.
25 to 30 or whatever and all that. Like, but yeah, proven models are emerging in any of these, but it's not limited to, like, a particular cluster of people, to be very frank.
I can echo with that as well. Myself, I'm not into much into social media channel myself. Now I'm trying to get into it because again, one of the core human need is being significance, right? It's not necessarily monetarily, but it's just you being known, you having that own personal identity, right? There's always an identity crisis goes around, and sometimes maybe curiosity as well. Okay, let's see what it is. If you use it well, you got a lot of connections. But that's where I love your business model, the way you kind of bridge the gap between the upcoming influencers and the marketing as well. Is there any business impact, right? What's in it for corporates to get into your platform in terms of the potential money they saved? Because I know that we all know that traditional marketing, right? But what's a business value for corporates to use your platform?
So, I mean, like, the ideology is like, the platforms like us survive on like two bases. Either I'm actually saving you costs or giving you better returns, right? Let's
Got
say
it.
if you're spending like, 5 lakh, I'm saying, like, if you're getting, say, for 5 lakh, you're getting 10 lakh reach, right? I mean, like, I'm supposed to either get you 12 lakh reach, like 20% or 30% from your existing reach, or let's say if you have a 5 lakh budget, like instead of spending on just 10 people, I'm trying to make more people, and hence helping you make more output, right? With saving of budget, right? People to pick, and hence this thing, right? So that way is like, I mean, what is happening in influencer marketing, and then like what we do is like, right now majorly is one is like you have to discover the right influencers who are giving you a maximum value for the same amount of budget, and that keeps changing based on your context, based on your type of brand, based on your objective which you're trying to do, and maybe even the category as well, right? So the platform does that. The platform says that, like, for same 5 lakhs, I will give you multiple iterations on who's the right person to actually pick in a very automated way using data analytics, right? The output is subjective to whether you want to save costs or you want to make ROI output in terms of views, or like engagement, or maybe even like, video views.
Got it. Got it. So let's move into your culture now, more about your company itself, Pranesh. What kind of culture can we expect when within Chorus? Right? What is your culture to begin with?
So, I mean, like, probably, I mean, like, I read a lot of what, I mean, like, I copied a lot of what Netflix did, and then I made my own version of what Netflix did,
Got it.
right? And I mean, I think I read this quote by Netflix. I mean, roughly translating, I don't remember the exact quote. It says that, like, people who you work with are not exactly your family. They are, treat them more like a professional team, right? And I think I truly believe that, right? And we have managed to set up a similar culture like that over the years. It doesn't take day one. It took us like, long years to actually get here. The idea is like, we are pretty open. Like, when I say open, like this and all that, like, see, there will always be two types of people who want to actually do anything to grow, and people who are like, will do a 9 to 5 comfortably, and then like, beyond 5 they are not very comfortable to stretch. Maybe they will stretch till 6, maybe they will stretch till 7, but not more than that, right? How it works is like you kind of need both the people, right? Because like, you if you keep the 9 to 5 people, kind of people who want to have a perfect work life balance or something like that, then like, you cannot have those driving forces kind of people. But if you have the driving forces kind of people, what will end up happening is like you're creating a over positive, extremely high toxic energy kind of a culture, right?
Okay.
So you need to have a right balance of these people and these people, and that's what like we managed to build, right? We say that like, okay, you know what, like you want to actually give your fullest potential, I'm going to back you in any level. You want to actually call me at 2 o'clock, I'll happily call you at 2 o'clock. Like I'll pick up your phone at 2 o'clock, and then I'll discuss ideas with you. If you want to come on a Saturday and then like, hang out with me at my place and then like have coffee or something like that, I'm more than happy to do that,
Got it.
right? That is also what we bring. Second thing is like, if you don't want to do all of that, you want to do a comfortable 9 to 5 or a 10 to 6. In our case, it's actually 10 to 6, 10 to 6 or something like that. Do that really well. I'm not bothered if you are not like this person, but this part you do really well, right? And I mean, like, and no biases or no, I mean, this is the simplest thing. And then like we made a nice culture book, etc., etc., decks and all that. But the summary of it is like both of these exist. You choose what you want to do. You will be compensated accordingly, and then you will grow like as a leader based on what you are picking and what you're doing really well.
Got it.
That thing. For example, like, people in this bucket, let's say call it bucket A, who's like flexible, who want to relearn 10,001 times and they don't mind failing, kind of people, and people who are saying that like, I know this really well, I'm not going to experiment much, but I'm going to do this job really well, which is like, the more structured kind of people or something like that, right? For these people we give more opportunities to keep jumping and all that. For these people we give them challenges in terms of what they have to do for this quarter or this year. For these people we just throw open questions and then say, do whatever you want.
Got
This is
it.
the problem which has to be solved, right? And yeah, that's a dynamic which we maintain in the company.
So it's quite flexible, I would say, in terms of.
We decide who comes in what, and then we give them people options. Initially we give them like, we'll say that like, like, I'm going to push you to the edge to see where you are falling under, and then we will gauge, okay, like, you're falling under bucket A or you're falling under bucket B, and then we start defining your career path, or like, your, I mean, I actually say that even during the time when you join, I tell people saying that like, like, I'm going to assume that like your average tenure here is going to be 2 years. If it's going to be more, I'm going to be more than happy. This 2 years, I want you to have fun, right?
Got
Fun
it.
can be like, or a 10 to 6, happy vibe, great, like, conversations, balance this thing, or fun can be like, extremely high energy, high idea, too many whiteboards kind of a thing for you. You choose your level of fun, right? And when you're leaving, I want you to actually leave without any hard feelings for both me and you. So that way, we have open conversation to understand which bucket you're falling under, and then craft tasks slash KPIs slash growth path accordingly.
Got it. So your expectation, let's start with 2 years. Do people tend to leave at 2 years, or is what kind of attrition rate you could expect in your?
See, people leave for multiple reasons. That's a reason, no, Kiran. I mean, like, and if you notice, right, you will see a lot of folks who have had a gap of 2 years and then who come back as well, right? In our this thing, if you just browse, you will find, right, and there are some legit reasons. And then like sometimes, I mean, like, let's say if somebody joins fresh out of college, right? I mean, to our company, right, the kind of like, learning exposure which he or she is exposed to may be slightly lower, and then the person has to go and learn from different cases from outside in, from the outside world, and then the person wants to come back. We are very happy to like, say that like, okay, you know what, like, come back, like, forget the fact that you even left, right? That happens. Or there are times when like, there is like, family constraints, personal constraints which they have, because of which they have to leave, right? There are also instances which I have to be which I have to accept, right? There are larger corporates who are able to pay up way more hikes than what we can actually genuinely offer. We are open about it. I say that like, you know what, I'm not going to bid against this extremely large corporate because I don't have that money, right? And I think that like, if you think that that's the right thing for you, I'm completely fine with it. Like, no harm, no foul, or whatever and all that. Like, we'll stay friends. I think if you're taking that, like, I don't have a problem. Just serve your like, due tasks, finish up those due tasks, and then like you can leave, right? So like that's what actually happens. So we are kind of like observing people stay on for like 2.5, 3 years, and beyond that, one of these things usually happens. Like, almost always 10%, 15% of the people retain back. But yeah, 85% one of these things happen.
So is it a big challenge, especially in your industry, where you see that level of attrition, where 2, 3 years you have to bring on people? Is that one of the challenge that you as a leader facing? Because I know when I'm talking to many small to medium sized business, right, attracting and retaining talent is one of the biggest challenge.
It
Uh,
was a challenge in the earlier days, Kiran. I'm not denying that. In fact, like till about like 3 years, 2 years, 3 years back, it was a like major challenge. Today, luckily, we have. I believe that like we have done stuff in a way that like any of these candidates who we are actually interviewing with us had some touch point with us. In the sense like has used some product of Chorus, or some has participated in some campaign of Chorus, or like has seen us in some awards or something like that. We have higher touch point in the market. And I mean, like, I would attribute it to the fact like we had been innovating like a lot, and then like that is helping us frame the perspective in people's mind. Hey, you know what, like, these guys are innovating, I should be in this guy's ship sometime. That is part one. And part two is like our marketing is doing a fairly good job of building a brand,
okay.
and we have spent a lot of um, manpower even shaping how we are calling ourselves, how we are staying relevant in the market, and how is it resonating with anybody in the ecosystem, right? And that's because of that, like major of the market kind of relates to our cause. When there is a relates to our cause thing angle going on, subconsciously in your head you want to work with the company at some point of time.
Got it. Got it. So you kind of have a strong EVP, employee value proposition as well, right? In terms of
Oh,
people.
that's called an EVP. I didn't even know. Most of this was self-taught with experiments, so I don't know it's called EVP. But yeah, yes, yeah, that we have that.
No, it's we always look at the purpose, right? Why employees? Because employees these days, the expectations are shifting. Pranesh, they wanted to work for a company where there is a purpose, right? It's a purpose led. So going back to your workforce, right? How do you see this kind of evolving in terms of roles for your workforce in the coming 3 to 5 years? Because the reason we ask, because we have this transforming, like we call generative AI as well, right? And how would that affect your industry or yourself? And what kind of expectation do you have in terms of skill sets and the evolution of, for your workforce in the coming, at least let's say next 3 to 5 years?
So, Kiran, like to be very frank, right? I mean, we in whatever interview, in whatever format, what we tell people is like, the person has to be extremely good at English language skills, and the person has to be street smart, right?
Mm.
If just these two qualities satisfy, right, the person can pick up any skills irrespective of how the industry changes. We're not bothered too much about this particular part, to be very frank, right?
Got it.
Um, and besides, what we are now, actually focused more on in terms of alignment of vibe of a person with the rest of the company which we have created. That's our bigger problem, not the skill set of a person, right? And luckily, what we have done is like, we have created for 120 people company. You might say it's unnecessary, but there is like two people who are working only on the corp strat kind of a role, right? Corp strat in the sense like not your typical executive assistants to the CEO kind of guys. They actually do corp strat by reading what other companies have done and try to create a scaled down version of a corp strat. So what we have managed to do is like, we managed to create playbooks of growth for every almost every role. 70-80% of the roles have playbooks of growth, right? Along with links, what to do, where to learn, etc., and all that. And we kind of update this once every year, right? If it's something more dynamic, then probably we will update it once in a 6 months. If it's not exactly dynamic, like once in a year, right? And hence, if street smart people are going through these playbooks, they become functional role people for me super fast.
Got it.
And I don't have to spend a lot of time by actually, training that people, etc., and all that. We give homeworks. We say that, like, what, like, I'm dumping you this homework. This is your first week homework, second week homework, third week homework, and then there's going to be a test. Fourth week homework, fifth week homework, sixth week homework. That's it. Homework is over. Now you're a full professional. That's all.
So got it. So what's important is people fitting in your existing culture, right? So what do you do usually? What leadership practices yourself and your leadership team have when few people? I mean, not everybody can fit into the right. there's always a challenge. But how do you address that as a challenge? I mean, because that can lead to a disengagement, right? When few set of people are not kind of fitting in with the existing. So, what kind of measures do you take in order to bring them back to engaged world? Or more curious around how do you deal in that situation?
I'm sure you have heard this, right? In a lot of SMEs or sub 200 people companies and all that, the character of the company is almost always the character of the founder, right?
Yeah,
And it translates kind of directly. If the founder is energetic fast, then the company becomes energetic fast. If the founder is abusive, then the company becomes abusive. Like it works both ways, right? I won't say it got planned, but that's what ended up happening, right? I am a guy who hates things which, when it moves slow, that causes a lot of anxiety for me if anything is slow,
got
right?
it.
And I am a guy who wants to grow at a pace which is 50-60% higher than a typical industry good growth rate, right? And I am a guy who's willing to give my all to get there, right? I will genuinely dedicate my all to get there, and I'm willing to teach 10,001 people who are believing in my vision. Every single leader who came and then who stayed back with us started sharing the same personality,
Got it.
right? Now what I'm doing is, let's say somebody says that I want to hire the head of whatever, say head of outbound, or I want to hire the head of outreach, or maybe I want to hire a senior marketing manager or something like that. Okay. I what I used to do earlier was I used to have this two rounds, skill round and culture fit round, right? Where the skill round will be done by the particular hiring manager itself. Culture round I will do, right? I will say that let's say if you're coming to the culture round, I'll say that bro, I'm there's no doubt about the fact that you're super good or not. If you were not super good, you would not even have reached here. And I tell them the reason why you are here is because, I mean, we have this thing from the internet which says 2 beers and a puppy test. Are you the guy who I want to have 2 beers with you, or are you the guy who I can trust a puppy with you? We use that simplest thing, and then we ask multiple questions to understand whether we share that vibe or not, right? And this kind of I translated it to the same hiring managers also, saying that why don't you do that? I don't want you to come back and then say that you are having issues, or that person having issues with you or something like that. Besides just gauging the skill sets, why don't you test whether is this the person who you will probably go out with a movie if you have some extra cash, or if I give you two tickets, right? So that ended up happening in a very scalable way. Now I don't take decisions. I have decentralized decision making, right? I'm I ask, okay, are you confident about this guy? I'm yeah. How much percentage confident are you? I'm on 90% confident. Okay, 90% is good enough. Let's take this guy. I'm when somebody says I'm 60% confident, I will say, okay, write down why 60% and why not that 40% is getting covered. In that process, they themselves will realize this is the reason or something like that. And then, you know what, they will take a call afterwards. I thought this is a better way to scale it. I don't know whether it's a structured way of scaling it, but this was a better way of scaling it for me. I tell them, you know what, you decide, I'm going to see what you're going to do. And if things go wrong or something like that, completely fine. If things go great or something like that, that's well and good. Right now, you are you're allowed to actually experiment, and I trust you, right? That made the whole hiring process more scalable.
Got it. So, I mean, that's interesting what you said, right? Praanesh, I mean, you being such a high performer, very energetic, and you expect nothing but a growth, right? So, on that note, employee engagement is one of the hot topic when it comes to people management. When I talk about engagement, is them employees not being emotionally connected with the company, but more about how they can bring in best version of themselves, right? Where they are very well connected, they are proactive and productive, and they also bring their creativity at a workplace. So, what strategies has worked for you when it comes to getting best out of your employees? Because at the end of the day, you are as good as your team, right? If your team performs, that means your business is firing, right? So what has worked with you when it comes to getting your people engaged to get to that high performance level?
So yeah, like I told, the same playbooks also is one part of it, right? And then we have tighter mentorship slash review kind of a thing. I say that guys, you don't need to be scared about reviews. Reviews are good. Reviews are supposed to help you grow, not to actually sit and mock at you or something like that. So that those are more cleaner communication, cleaner reviews or something like that, right? Besides that, what we do is we spend time spotting people who want to actually do something genuinely good, who are ready to put that extra mile. When I say extra mile, not just stretch, who want to learn something new. And if that problem exists, that's not in their typical KRA, KPA, or their regular roles or something like that. If they still want to solve that problem, we keep spotting those people, right? And
Okay.
when we spot those people, what we do is we actually say that if the person comes and says that hey Praanesh, I want to work with you directly, I don't want to work with somebody else who's working to somebody else and all that, I'm okay, you can work. I'm currently working on this project, but remember, if you are working with me, I am like this, I'm going to expect the same thing from you. And if you're up for a challenge, well and good. If you're not up for a challenge, it's fine, right? That, and we keep doing that in multiple levels. Somebody says that what, I want to actually work directly with the head of sales, not to my regional manager or some senior manager or something like that. And I will solve this problem. Okay, you're given 3 months, and this is early success of this problem and all that. If you're able to solve this, directly do it, right? So we encourage that. That is one. And to facilitate people signing up for it, right? We keep the company fairly flat. When I say flat, yeah, the hierarchy exists, but we don't have cabins in our company at all. We
Mm.
don't have CEO office, CXO office. That logic is not there, and we have created a less, how to say, I keep telling people that here you are coming having fun while working kind of a vibe. It's okay if you don't want to wear formals or jeans pant or whatever. You want to come in track pants, come in track pants, as long as you do your work, right? Somebody came and told me, I mean, a new joinee came and asked me, hey Pranesh, is form is track pants allowed in this company? Dude, if I'm wearing track pants, that means that you can wear track pants. That's all, right? So these are things which helped us make more approachable for people to sign up for larger tasks. And then we get these larger task people to actually create proof of, what, this guy created this large task, you can also become this person. Just ask and do things.
Go.
Sort of this helped us.
That's pretty good, Pranesh. In a way, you got a system in place, and you have people to support that system as well, right? The on final note, Pranesh, in terms of wisdom, right? What kind of message do you want to give to for leaders who are growing their business? Because now the way you've started, pretty much you started yourself, and now you have grown significantly, right? Especially last 2 years. So, what advice you would give to for leaders who is growing their team, or even for employees who would love to work for you, right, in your company? Is there any wisdom you would like to share, Pranesh?
To put it simple, experiment a lot, which means that not just continuously doing new experiments, also understanding what is working out and what is not working out. Something is working out, create a structure for it rather than keeping it in a experimentation, throw everything at the wall kind of a way and then create a structure. Something is not working out, understand what's not working out, and then stop or improve, right? And this is about teams, hiring, even why are people not joining when you're posting a job post on LinkedIn? We have even had sessions with our HRs. Why is that you're not getting applications and you're posting on LinkedIn? Right? So we analyze everything. And I tell my HRs, guys, just don't copy paste the JD from the internet and then post. Understand why it doesn't work for us or why it is working for us. If it's working for us, I want you to tell you why it's working for us. If it doesn't working for us, you tell that this was the mistake, Pranesh, and then you are wrong. I'm fine. I'm happy to this thing or something like that, right? So yeah, so this basically continue. I mean, we used to call it stop, start, continue, right? I mean,
Yeah.
stop, start, continue, and all that. Putting it into actual practice with respect to experiments. That's all. Nothing complex actually.
It's basically test and measure, and what's working and what's working not. And I think that's a great message. I mean, these insights are very, very valuable. Pranesh, pretty much I got to know more about you, your leadership style, your culture. And it sounds like a very fun and work environment, right? Entering into your company. But this has been amazing. And I really wish you and your team continued success. The kind of passion and the energy that you have And I'm pretty sure you only grow on a double-digit growth over the next 5 years. But thank you. And thanks to our viewers as well for joining us. And we'll be in touch very soon. But thank you, Praanesh.
Thanks a lot, Kiran. It was great speaking to you and then sharing these insights and discussing more about it.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Praanesh.